northern red oak, can you root them as a cutting? Yes, you can. The results are poor. The results are, I'm going to use the word fickle. One tree will be successful and the other tree, forget it, it won't. It'll also is fickle because of 1 year you can get away with it and the next year you try the same darn thing and it doesn't work. So put that aside. Can you grow them in tissue culture? Yes. Am I set up to do that here? No. I'm here because today, grafting trees, I think the first red oak tree I ever grafted was in 1983. Today's 2022. So it can work. I mean, it's quite effective. Red oak, I need to talk, I'm sorry, but I need to talk a little bit more about this particular species. Unlike, say, Quercus alba, white oak, or Macrocarpa, bur oak, or swamp white oak, Quercus bicolor. All those are in the white oak group, 1-year-old acorns, okay? In the red oak group, northern red oak being the example for today, they're in the section Lobatae, L-O-B-A-T-A-E, subgenus of the genus Quercus, the oaks. They have, the Lobatae group, has some well-earned notoriety when it comes to having compatibility issues. So some of us may be more familiar than I am in terms of certain species, for example, of Prunus, for example. There are certain species you can put together and you can't put together other combinations because they don't work. Or, more importantly, they will work in the greenhouse. They'll grow well. They really will. They'll grow in your field after you planted them wherever, in an orchard setting, and they'll grow for 3 years. Or they may grow for 5 years. And then on the 6th year, we'll say, the tree, instead of growing vigorously like it has been, putting on this much new growth every year, it puts on this much. And it flowers like crazy. And when it flowers like crazy and you only have this much growth instead of that much, in a red oak tree now, I'm jumping back here, what happens? What's going on? That's when you start looking very closely at the union between the scion piece you started with, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, and the understalk. And incompatibility has many manifestations. It is very hard to, I've been at this a long time, I do not have a good understanding in this species as to why some fail and some do not. Usually the failure rate can be, depends on the year, depends on the clone. Clone meaning, scion source 1 versus scion source 2. Scion source 2 may have a failure rate of 30% at 5 years in the field, 6 years from a grafted tree in a greenhouse. That's reality. Other trees, other clones, may not have a 30% failure rate, but they'll have something like 5%. So what? I can live with that. That's easy. Some of them, I won't say have zero. Some of them, you always have some issues post. You always have some, I'll use the word shrinkage, in terms of you start out with 100 trees and they all look beautiful, and then come back in 2 years and you still have 100 trees. You're always going to lose a couple. So, but red oak, I call it red oak. Northern red oak is the best common name to use. Rubra is the best name of all to use, Quercus rubra. It does have a well-deserved reputation for compatibility issues. Other species in the same boat, shall we say, excuse me, are Quercus palustris, pin oak. Same thing. They have failure rates which can preclude their use as a grafted tree in a landscape setting, for example. They just can't use them because the failure rate is too high. And you don't know they're going to die until 6 years after you you sell them. And that's not a good thing. So there you go. But in spite of all of that, producing Quercus rubra grafted trees, some of the oldest ones I have, as I mentioned before, I'm trying not to exaggerate here, but the diameter of these DBH, diameter breast height of these trees, they're at least this big. And they were grafted in by yours truly in 1983 or 1984. And so they do live a long time, but there is a definite shrinkage factor to be aware of. I spoke about just now making sure that the bands, the rubber bands that you use to hold both of the scion piece and the stalk together as tight as you can, okay? And we'll get to how to optimize that here in just a minute. But you just cut those rubber bands, okay? You don't remove it, you just cut it. Before you move it out of the greenhouse, which for us would be about the first 2 weeks of May at the latest, because after that, first of all, the frost danger in the spring is essentially over by then. And then also, because at our latitude, unlike perhaps some of you who are watching this, in second week of May, it can get really, really hot in the greenhouse. And so we want to try to optimize the use of the greenhouse by starting early, quote unquote, and finishing early and getting the trees outside. What do we do with them when we move them outside? This is all this aftercare story, if you will. We talked about cutting the rubber band. When we cut it, we don't take it all off. We just cut it. That's all, okay? That's on any of the types of trees that I'm going to talk to you about today. That's all we do. What else do? We put I don't have one with me right this second, but you get the idea. Little bamboo stake, and I can tie the bamboo stake and the new growth to each other. So to make sure that this is stable, okay? What else do we do? Because it's a lot easier for me. I don't know about younger people who also work here, but for me, older than I am, I like to work at heights like this. So if I'm going to fertilize these trees before we move them outside, which I recommend, would be a really good idea. You could use an Osmocote Triple 19, for example, 3 to 4 months. At our latitude, that works, okay? Put a tablespoon in each one. That's a lot, but boy, will they grow. They'll get to be, some of them will push almost 1 meter in height by the end of the growing season, provided we do it in a timely fashion. So what do we do with them? So we've done all of that. We staked them, we cut them, we fertilized them. What are we going to do next? We're going to move them outdoors. And what does outdoor moving mean? We're going to put them basically in a shade house area. It can be a Quonset shaped. Ours happens to be a rectangular, tall, square, rectangular shade house area where we have approximately 48 to 52%. Does it make a difference? No. 52% shade on the roof and on the sides of this structure. And we just put them out there and they grow there all summer. And hopefully we can plant them in the ground in the autumn, in the fall of 2022. You propagate them in March, you can plant them in the ground and they do very well, at least for us. They don't heave or anything like that. Winter, because we're growing them in a pot, not bare root. And you can put them in the ground 1st of October. And it's just one less thing to worry about next spring, because this takes a lot of energy to do. So that's kind of how we do it. Could we improve upon it? Oh, I'm sure we could. But we have, like many other university facilities, we have many players. We have many different crops, all of them competing for space and time and energy and talent, all at the same time right now. It's a busy time of year. So we do the best we can. But if we can minimize how much work we have to do in terms of planting trees out in the spring of 2023, we'd much rather plant them in 2022 in the autumn. So that's another video. We can talk about that some other time.